Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and at request I am starting my Konflikt 47 painting with the Stuart X turret. The nice little turret with the Tesla cannon, and that is pretty cool. This kit is currently only available in the Armies of America starter set, which is a shame, but I'm sure it'll be available separately. Hopefully you can buy just the turret at some point, because Warlord games have been a little inconsistent about whether you can buy turrets separately. It comes as a single cast resin turret with the gun barrel attached, and then a CO cast extra piece of some of the little greebles. Now I will quickly show off the instructions, simply because I like to share that for anyone watching in case they've lost theirs in the future. They pick up a model kit from somewhere, who knows where it comes from. But this is actually for the plastic M5 Stuart with the resin turrets to go on top. And I won't be building the M5 Stuart, and that's because I already have an M3 Stuart, and having an M5 and an M3 Stuart just seems a little superfluous. I might change my mind on that at some point in the future, but we shall see. Once we get to the instructions for the actual Tesla turret itself, there is one little mistake that I noticed, but it shows the main body of the turret with the gun as one piece, and then the smaller pieces that go onto the side. There's some kind of targeting scanner thing on a little arm, there is a cable that goes across the back to one of the ammo canisters, and then the mistake is actually this periscope, which is actually shown fitted without any instructions to attach it, although it should be fairly obvious that it goes on the little circle thing. And I started by trying to put that into place, and I found that it didn't actually fit. The base ring of the periscope is actually slightly wider than the corresponding circle on the turret, and I was thinking about which way round. Do I shave down the periscope, or do I cut off the ring on the turret? I ended up shaving down the periscope and managed to make it fit. It wasn't too difficult, just a tiny bit fiddly. Next is the scanning kind of targeting piece that goes on the side of the turret, and this is just a block and a little arm, and the arm goes into a hole on the side of the turret. I recommend putting the arm into place first and then attaching the sight to it, because that way you can line up the sight with the direction of the barrel. If you glue the arm onto the sight first, then you may end up with it being slightly to the side. But it just makes it easier to line it up with the way you want it to if you do it in the other way around. The final piece is this little cable, which I did manage to get in place, although it was slightly awkward. I think that maybe warming this up in some hot water so that you can glue each piece in place one at a time might be better, but I managed to glue both ends in place at the same time without too much trouble. I quickly test fitted it on the M3 Stuart, and I'd already checked this before, but I just wanted to see what the kind of traversal would be like. The ammo canisters at the back does clear the antenna, which is nice, but the main gun obviously doesn't, and neither does the sight, that kind of infrared sight sticking out the side. But that's not really a problem, as that's kind of almost pointing the turret backwards before that kind of interaction happens. Moving on to thinking about painting it, and I want it to mostly match between the turret and the body of the tank, but I don't necessarily need a perfect match. I can easily say that this was an M3 Stuart that was put into service in the early parts of early to mid part of World War II, and at some point it was taken off the front line, and then in 1947 it was given this nice brand new turret. So actually the turret and the body don't need to match perfectly, it tells its own story in a way. But I did go back to my own video from a little while ago where I painted this exact M3 Stuart to give me at least an idea of how I wanted to go about it. Now, interestingly, the green paint that I've been using ever since my Tanith cloaks has become nearly empty, and also is just a little bit gloopy and nasty. I flooded it with water and I mixed it around and kind of poured off the effluent into my airbrush, which is a little bit dangerous because that can just create a clog. But I managed to get enough green onto the turret to start the actual painting process. And I'm going to kind of use a similar but not quite the same technique as with my original Stuart hull, but I'm going to change up a couple of things. And the first thing I'm going to change up is the way that I'm applying the black. So originally I applied black with an airbrush around the panel edges of the M3 Stuart, But this time I'm going in with a panel line instead. And I like doing this panel lining early. It's kind of a style that I've been regularly using in my Konflikt 47 models, so it's going to kind of thematically fit quite well. And I like to get this in early because I can be kind of quick and messy with it, even though it does take quite a long time still, and it kind of has a much more subtle effect than any of the other techniques that I would use. And you can see even kind of just this effect, it kind of has that almost pencil drawing effect, kind of really bringing out the shape of every kind of aspect of the turret, and I just enjoy how that looks, and it's a nice therapeutic 10 minutes to do that. I then moved on to some of the details that will be different colours, and interestingly, even though the Tesla guns in Konflikt 47 are usually depicted as glowing, and usually glowing blue, I've been doing them in a kind of a reddish gold or coppery colour, kind of leaning into that little bit of steampunk almost aesthetic, but not quite. And I'm really enjoying having this kind of effect go down. So to start with, it's going to be a rose gold, and then later on it's going to be a brighter gold for the highlight. I did also pick out some of the details somewhat at random with a dark steel metallic, and this was just to kind of balance out the look of the turret. I've got brass on the front and on the back on the ammo canisters, and on the middle in the kind of that cabling. And so I wanted to have some steel also, a little bit at the front, a little bit at the back. I painted the turret recoil springs. Do Tesla guns have recoil? I don't know. Don't think so. Maybe it's to do with elevation, whatever it's for. And then just the final thing, this second cable coming from the ammunition. I was tempted to paint this copper as well, but I thought just a little splash of something else would go quite well. And in the scanner aiming system thing, whatever this is called, I painted that in a pink first and then a yellow, and the pink is just there as an underlayer to make sure that the yellow comes out quite brightly. Now I ended up flooding this kind of screen with the yellow. And there's two reasons for that. One is it gives a really solid paint effect, that kind of solid yellow that I was after, but it also ends up skinning once the paint dries and forms a very smooth look. So long as it doesn't wrinkle. It can cause problems if you have too much paint and you cause it to wrinkle, but by watering down the paint and letting it dry by itself, I actually propped it up against my paint water, just let it dry there for however many hours it needs to dry, and you might be able to achieve that kind of smooth glass-like effect from the plastic paint. After that, I threw on a black wash. And this is where I start to realise that I have actually gone a little bit different from my original Stuart turret, but once this was dry, I realised that it would be close enough. I'm kind of happy with just how close that I got. Now for the rest of the Stuart, the wash I used on that was the pure black, and I used exactly the same pure black wash on the Tesla turret. However, I think I went much heavier. I've kind of changed the mix that I use in terms of how much medium and how much water I put in, and this time I put in less water, so it's gone on a little heavier, and so the overall turret is a little bit darker than the hull. But I also realised at this point that I missed one step that I usually consider quite important when I paint vehicles, especially my bolt-action tanks, and that's the modulation effect. Highlighting the middle of each kind of armour panel, each module of the vehicle in the centre, which highlights the middle of it and frames the outside. Now I didn't do that with the turret, but I have done it with the hull, and I think that's going to be the biggest visual difference. Kind of the lack of that modulation, but also the slightly darker wash, and that's going to give me that kind of this turret was made 4 years after the hull vibe that I was thinking about earlier. Once the wash was dry, the turret's looking really nice at this point, and I just have to go in with the last few details to bring the turret to be a little closer in theme to the hull. And the one thing that you can't stop me. You can't keep this away from me. You're going to have an edge highlight no matter what in any video where I'm painting a vehicle. Just try and stop me. I dare you. So, naturally, the light green, the same light green that I edge highlighted the hull of the tank with is going to be the edge highlight on the turret. Now I am going a little bit kind of heavier with my edge highlight here, and that is again kind of matching the panel lining. It's giving this kind of slightly cartoonish look, but also still grounded in a more kind of not realistic but real-ish art style. And honestly, I just really love doing an edge highlight, slowly, methodically picking out all of the little bits of the model and making each shape just look kind of more visible, especially when you're on the tabletop, you're viewing a model from kind of arm's length or more. When it's got an edge highlight on it, just all of the shapes of the vehicle are clearly visible even from that distance, and it is just a style that I really like to do. I did also touch up some of edge highlighting on the steel with a much brighter silver, and on the kind of copper and brass effect metallics for the Tesla gun with that bright gold I mentioned. And pretty much that's the entire turret complete. Like I said, it has a slightly darker overall tone to the hull and a slightly cleaner look because I haven't done any weathering. But that is exactly what I wanted when I talked about kind of having a more recent production turret going on an older hull that they've pulled out of storage somewhere. And I think this has come out absolutely lovely. I really like the brass effect on the turret. I like how the green doesn't quite match but nearly does. The yellow on the scanner I'm not necessarily convinced about, but I think it does a good enough job that I can leave it alone at least. So if you want someone to blame for this video, you can of course blame Commander HHL for all of his tactical comments that he's been adding on a lot of my videos, and specifically he requested the Stuart turret recently, and as it's a small project, I moved it to the top of the list. Well, this can join my other Konflikt 47 American vehicles, of which I have quite a few now, and also I have another one coming in a couple of weeks most likely. It's a bigger model, so I need to get stuck into that at some point. Let me know what you think of the Tesla turret for the Stuart. Should I build the M5 hull as well, and the M5 turret, kind of, because the plastic kit comes with that as well? Should I leave it just with the Tesla turret on the M3 Stuart? I think it looks kind of cool on the smaller hull, actually. I quite like how it looks. And what do you think of particularly the brass work on the Tesla? Should I change this to the glowing blue? Should I, or can I leave it? Can I get your permission to leave it in the brass kind of coppery look? I do actually like the metallic, the way that it looks. So I'm probably going to keep it. But with all of that done, a nice little model finished, I can say I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.